When did I become a Seahawks fan? Find out next. It was 1976 when the Seattle Seahawks joined the National Football League, and I was still young. I was about, I would say around the first or second or third grade, I should say. I really didn't have a favorite team then, but a couple of fun facts about the Seahawks real quick. It says here that the Seahawks are the only NFL team to switch conferences twice. The franchise began play in 1976 in the NFC West division, but switched conferences with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after one season and joined the AFC West. Between 1977 and 2002, their division rivals were the Denver Broncos, the San Diego Chargers, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Oakland Raiders. Another fun fact is that they've won the NFC Championship games in 2005, 2013, 2014, and lost the AFC Championship game in 1983. As a result, they are the only teams to have appeared in both the AFC and NFC Conference Championship games. But as I said earlier, I didn't have a favorite team, but a year later, that kind of changed, and it was not the Seahawks. It was actually the Dallas Cowboys. Reason why is because they had some players that I thought were pretty cool. Most notably, Roger Staubach and Tony Dorsett. And because of that, I was rooting for them. I liked how they played. They had an awesome defense called the Doomsday Defense. And I think it had to do, I'd have to say it had to do with the fact that when there would be in a third down passing situation, they'd line up in shotgun formation. Now we see shotgun formations constantly in almost every snap, whether they pass it or throw it. But that kind of was, I wouldn't say it was a trendsetter, but that was just so cool to see. And just how the line was putting together. When Roger Staubach would say set, the offensive line would get themselves in a... It was a weird formation. But I just thought, these guys are cool. And so I was a Cowboys fan. And it made my fandom even larger when they went to the Super Bowl to face the Denver Broncos, and they beat them 27-10. And I was a Cowboys fan ever since. Now, I was also disappointed because they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers the following year. I was livid. I hated the Steelers. I don't hate them now. But back then, any team that would beat the Cowboys, I would root for the other team to beat the team that beat the Cowboys. That's just what it was. And I was still a Cowboys fan throughout the 80s, even though they did not have a good record during that time. Now, that time too kind of changed a little bit. Okay, I was kind of fed up with, Cowboys constantly losing throughout the 80s, and enter the San Francisco 49ers. Now, when they played the Cowboys in the NFC Championship to go to their very first Super Bowl, I did not root for the Niners then because, like I said, if the Cowboys lost, I would root for the other team that would play the team that eliminated the Cowboys. And so I was cheering for the Cincinnati Bengals in the Super Bowl. And that didn't happen. But I was really impressed with what Joe Montana was doing. That guy was just a great individual. And I started becoming a Niners fan in the 80s because of Joe Montana. And especially when they played the Miami Dolphins in the Super Bowl, I rooted for them. I picked them to win. And that kind of went throughout the entire rest of the 80s. Now, that kind of changed in the 90s. because they traded Joe Montana to Kansas City to keep Steve Young to make him the starting quarterback. But the Cowboys were relevant in the early 90s. Now when Jerry Jones bought the team, I hated it. I hated it. The way he took matters into his own hands when he fired Tom Landry and hired Jimmy Johnson, and I was glad that they were 1-15 their first year in existence with Jimmy Johnson as their coach. But then they won the Super Bowl 2 out of 3 years, and so my fandom returned. I was a Cowboys fan again, and okay, that's okay. Someone told me that when I was a 49ers fan during the 80s because of Joe Montana, one guy said, "Well, you're just a bandwagon fan." Okay, I don't care. That's how it was back then. But from the early 90s to about the mid-2000s, I was always a Cowboys fan again. And I'd cheer for them. And if you've seen my previous video, when I talked about memories with my father, we went to our very first and only game up in Seattle. And I had cowboy gear. I had a cowboy hat. And when I was at the game, again, just looking right here, I had a Cowboys hat on. Now, I did not have a Cowboys hoodie. It was just a normal, but I had a Cowboys t-shirt on underneath. And of course, when I was at the game, all decked out in my cowboy gear, giving my support for them, I got vilified. I got vilified. The fans would go by up. They're like, "What did we let in this stadium?" or something like that. "Oh my God, what have we here?" I was getting vilified. Let's just say that. Okay, this was back in 2005. As I said in my previous video with the memories of my father, I had my dad, my sons, and my other family members with me going to our very first NFL game. I mean, that was our first NFL game ever. I think for all of us, except for my cousin. I'd have to say he's been to some NFL games, other Seahawks games, because he lived in the Seattle area, and that's why we were able to go up there with all of us. But it was such a fun experience. And as I said in my video with the memories of my father, this was our vantage point. I didn't get a good view of here, but up in this area here, we had a nice view of the Space Needle. And this was so cool to see. Here we have the Seahawks coming out of their tunnel, the 12s getting involved. And so those were some of the pictures that I took on my camera, and it was a fun experience, okay? We had a good time. The Cowboys lost, Seattle won. I had no problem with that. Like I said, that was back in 2005. And I was just chatting with one of the fans that was sitting next to me, and he himself actually said that he was a 49ers fan, but when he moved up to Seattle, he became a Seahawks fan, and his girlfriend, she really trashed me. She trash-talked me the whole game, and she was really into it. I mean, she's going, "Let's kiss that one." I mean, when the crowd was getting loud, they were loud, and, the crowd would get loud when they were on defense, as natural as the 12s would do. And so they'd be going defense, and so I'm going offense, and the guy next to me, we're going back and forth, offense, defense, offense. It was so fun. It was very fun. And when the game was over, Seattle won because of a last-second field goal, and the fans around me, we all just shook hands. It was all respect. That's all it was. And that kind of shifted from that point forward, when I went to that game, um, I was still a Cowboys fan, but I was also starting to really like the Seahawks. And that game that we went to, well, that season was the year that Seattle went to their very first Super Bowl. And so I don't want to say I had a hand in that. That's not going to happen, no. But that was just kind of when it switched, when I started to become a Seahawk fan. And now, as far as the Cowboys go, well, I started my fandom for them gradually faded and went out of existence. Now, I'm not a Cowboys fan today. Okay? Let's just put it that way. Sorry, Cowboys fans. You can hate me. I don't care. But it's just because of some of the stupid things that Jerry Jones would do. And so it's just. And I think the final nail in the coffin when I stopped becoming a Cowboys fan was when he decided to sign Terrell Owens. And I just could not stand Terrell Owens. And he was just. That was just the final nail. As far as me being a Cowboys fan. I mean, I was just. Now, I don't hate them. Let's just say that. I don't hate them. There'll be times where if they're playing and I'm watching them, okay, I've got no rooting interest in them. It's the Seahawks, okay? So from 2005 till now was when I became a Seahawk fan.